morning, everybody. So glad that you can join us for tonight's pep talk. Tonight we're going to be talking about student self-advocacy, and what I'm going to be sharing and going through is actually what our students will be seeing this Friday in their advisory period. Just a reminder, every student is in an advisory class, and we're really using that time to deliver some social emotional learning and really helping students develop that piece of themselves as a student. Obviously, we want them to be successful academically, but we want them to be successful human beings as well. And we're using advisory to do that. So this week, we're going to be talking about self-advocacy, which is a great timing because for those of you that don't know, this Friday, so 2 days from now, is the end of the quarter. So I know we had progress marks, progress reports go out a couple weeks ago. We're already at the end of the first quarter of the school year, which feels like it went fast, but also not fast at the same time. So you're going to be getting grades for your students again, and your students will be seeing their grades. So as these grades come out, you might be aware of what their grades are. You might be surprised by their grades, surprised in a positive way, maybe surprised in a not so positive way. So we really want students to think about advocating for themselves. Obviously, you all are such wonderful parents and families and guardians who will advocate for your own student, but we want students, whether they're a 9th grader or a 12th grader, to be able to advocate for themselves. So that's what I will be going through today. So whenever a student is doing advisory, we always start with 2 things. We have the video bulletin playing when they come into advisory, and then they fill out their student check-in form, which we had shown previously. I think it was the first or second pep talk, which feels like a long time ago. But that check-in form basically asks how a student is doing. It asks if a student answers that they're doing not good or terrible. It asks, what's going on. It asks how we as school staff can help. And it also asks all students, regardless of how they answer, if they have everything they need. Do they have the school supplies do they need? Maybe your family is needing for some basic resources, some basic needs. So we have the ability to make referrals for that sort of thing as well. So we always check in on them. And we're able to kind of look back and see, the advisory teachers are able to see what their students have said every single week, which is cool. So we always open with some sort of icebreaker. This week's icebreaker is having students identify an adult or adults at school who they can go to for help if they need it. Basically, adults that they feel are advocates for them here on campus. So we want students to know who those people are. Obviously, some students are really good at reaching out to myself as a counselor, reaching out to specific teachers, if they're in an athletic program, or if they're in a club or something where they know the teacher. They obviously know those are advocates as well. But we have some students who maybe they're 9th grader and they're brand new or brand new to the district. They don't know who they can go to for help. Ideally, it's everybody, but we want students to identify who those people are. And then, of course, we want them to know who they can go to, but it's even more important for them to learn self-advocacy. So we are going to be showing this short video about self-advocacy, which I'm not going to show the video now because I'm going to sum it up in the next slide. There's 5 points that a student needs to know when they are advocating for themselves. And so as they're watching it, I want them to reflect on a time that they have advocated for themselves. Or if they can't think of that, a time where they could have reached out to someone on their own behalf and they relied on someone else to do it. Maybe a parent or a sibling or a different teacher or even a counselor. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, we just want students to start thinking about how they themselves are their own best advocate. And oftentimes it's, maybe a student is getting a D or an F in a class. They have a lot of missing assignments. And reaching out to the teacher to say, hey, I understand that I have these things missing. How can I make them up? What should I start with? Where should I put the priority? If a student has, let's say, 10 missing assignments and they have a couple in each class, that feels like a lot and that feels like a hole, but it's not a hole that they can't get out of. If a student just chips away a little bit every day, they're able to make up those assignments. And if they're able to identify the ones that are of higher point value, that can be a great place to start. So these are the 5 strategies that short clip does talk about. 1, identifying and clarifying the problem or what they need. That is super important when students reach out to teachers. Being specific. Selecting the proper person to ask for help. Counselors, myself, and I'm Ms. Holly, the 9th and 10th grade counselor, or Mrs. Harase, my counterpart, who's the 11th and 12th grade counselor. We're a great place to start. But if it's about a class, that specific teacher is a great place to start. Students need to have confidence in themselves Teachers want to hear from students. Staff want to hear from students. It's their education. They're the ones doing it. And so we want to hear from them, and they need to have confidence in their ask. And they need to speak up. That is very challenging. Speaking up is very hard. A lot of students, they're like, I don't want to bother. I get those emails where they're like, I'm so sorry to bother you. And I'm like, you're never a bother. You're my student. It's my job to be there for you. So speaking up and having the confidence to do so. And then be thankful after the assistance. It's really a great thing when we get a thank you from a student, because we are going to try our best. Something that I do say on the next slide is a student might not get the answer they want or are expecting just because it might not be possible, but it's important to be thankful so that the staff member, the teacher, the counselor that they went to is more likely to, help again in the future. So there's 5 strategies that we're going to teach students. A couple do's and don'ts of self-advocacy, kind of the same sort of thing. We're going to tell students, know what you're asking. If they're writing an email, make sure that it's an email that is kind of in the proper, step-by-step process. So make sure there's a subject in there, an idea of what the email contains, a salutation, and then the details needed or a request. We've been getting students that put their entire email in the subject line, which is difficult to read and gets confusing, and then they'll erase that and put their reply in the subject line, so information gets lost. So definitely want them to put that information in the body of the email. And then again, realizing we want students to realize they might not get the result they want. They might not be able to drop that class. They might not be able to make up what they want to make up or retake a test, but there are steps. There's a compromise, right? There's a compromise that can be found. And if students are willing to compromise, then there can be a solution. We're asking students that they not be demanding about things. Try not to rely on a parent or sibling. Again, you all are wonderful advocates for your students, but we want to empower students to do this on their own. Don't write the entire message in the subject line of an email, kind of what I was just talking about. And don't assume that every female teacher is a Mrs. So again, we're just kind of also, in addition to teaching self-advocacy, we're all about the email etiquette too, because so much right now is back and forth with email, and just kind of cluing students into the Mrs. versus Ms. When addressing a female teacher. And I have a little reminder down here. Remember, you are your own best advocate, and it's true. So then it's kind of like our check for understanding what we're going to have students do at the very end. They have 3 options. So one is to email the adult that they identified at the beginning of advisory. Let that person know that they consider them an advocate. If they weren't able to think of anybody, the challenge is for them to reach out to their grade level counselor or a teacher that they like and get to know them a little better. Teach that person about them so that we can get to know our students better. The third is reach out to a teacher about an assignment that they need to make up or a test that maybe they felt unsure on. Let that teacher know that they have a plan to make it up, or ask their teacher to help them put together a plan to make up that assignment, to make up that test, and ask for teacher input on those sorts of things as well. So their check for understanding is one of those 3 things. And then we always remind them that their counselors and their teachers are here for them, and we want to support them in any way that we can. So that's just a little bit about, I took you through an advisory lesson that your students are going to get on Friday. Like I said, this week's topic is self-advocacy, which I think is really important for students at every age. So you got a little feel of what your students are going to be getting on Friday. And just a reminder for you all as well, empower your students to be their own advocate. It's not a skill that a lot of students are taught explicitly, and that's why we're taking the time to do this. And we're going to reteach this and revisit it, not just this year, but for as long as your student is with us at Nipomo High School. We want them to feel empowered to speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves. It's going to serve them well in school. It's going to serve them well in whatever comes next, college, a profession, the military, whatever our students choose to do. So if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to myself or Mrs. Hirase. We welcome feedback as well. And stay tuned for a little bit about some interventions that we are offering here on campus. I know that Mr. Deno sends out his weekly Parent Square email, which If you don't get the email or the text message, I highly recommend going into Aries and double checking your information, or calling us here in the office to double check your information, because he is sending out weekly updates to families. And then also, since it is the end of the grade mark, it's going to be really important to pay attention to those interventions, especially if your student has some lower grades, any Ds and or Fs, thinking about the steps that you can help them take to get some of those grades up before the next progress report. So thank you so much.
So in order to better support our students and their families, we've created an intervention page to help kind of answer any questions or access any tools necessary during distance learning. So in order to access this site, you're going to go onto the Nipomo Titans website. So it's nhstitans.org. Once you're there, you're going to go ahead and scroll down and click Tutoring and Supports for Students. You'll be directed to this website. So this first page is where students can sign up for tutoring sessions. Over here, we've got our 4 tutors listed. If you're interested, if you have a specific tutor that you want, or you just know that you want to sign up for tutoring, you can click on any of the names. It will take you to their calendar where you can click on dates and times to sign up for that tutoring session. So that's the first resource we have available. You can also reach out to your counselor. So if you want to talk to Ms. Holly or myself, you can click on our names, and that will take you to our calendars to where you can book an appointment to talk with us. Below that, we've got some of your resources listed. You can click on the names to email the people, and that's kind of another good way to reach out to either the tutors or admin or counseling. We also at the top have some really great resources. So if you click to the different screens, so if you go to Visit Classrooms, that's going to take you to a page that has all of our teachers listed on there. Below each teacher is a list of their classes that they're teaching. And if you want to see the videos that they created for back to school night, you're just going to click on a link to the class. So this was the honors pre-calculus class, and it will take you straight to their back to school night presentation. So that's a great way to refer to any of the information that was presented that night. Another area that we can support you with is with technology. So if you go to this tech support tab, you can reach out for tech support if you're having issues. If you need a Chromebook, you can request one here. And if you're a parent or guardian and you need some help, you can click here for some tutorials on how to better assist your student. The Library Media Center tab has our virtual library and our virtual career center. So the virtual library, in here, you can click in there, and one of the awesome things that she is doing is you can browse the books that are available, and you can actually click books that you want to check out, and she'll arrange a time for you to come check out those books that you want. So you still have access to all of the books in the library here. In the Virtual Career Center, Mrs. Oxner, it's a great resource for college information, scholarships. They also have a ton of college visits or campus visits scheduled to where you can go in and sign up for those. Just a lot of information. You also have the availability to click and make an appointment with Mrs. Oxner in the Virtual Career Center. So I would highly recommend checking out both of those, the Virtual Library and the Virtual Career Center, for some options and some things to kind of keep you occupied during this time. And finally, we have our Resources tab. So this Resources tab contains just a variety of information that might be helpful to you. So really, really important, how to check grades. So this is how to go into HomeLink and check grades for your student. And that way you can help, support them, and you'll know where they stand. We've got a learning recovery section, promoting attendance and good grades. So how can you work with your student to keep their attendance up and to kind of stay motivated to get those good grades? We've got online citizenship or online behavior and digital citizenship. We've got information on the advisory lessons we're doing. We've got our student check-in form. So that's where students can report how they're doing, if they're doing well, if there's something they need some help with. And that goes to the counselors, so we see it and we're able to provide our supports. There's pep talks, so this is where you can go find all of our weekly talks that we've posted. And then there's counseling services, and that would take them to us to where we would be able to support. So that is our interventions page. Again, if you have any questions or you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out, and you can do that by going back to this home screen and clicking on any of your counselors. Thank you so much. Have a great night.